Hello, my name is NeFesha Ruth, and I am with blackfolkart.com. I'm excited to be here today and talk to you a bit about what Black folk art is. In the first issue of Black Folk Art magazine, as you see here, make sure you get your copy at blackfolkart.com. And you can also see this on the website digitally. Right now, it's for free on the website, and you'll be able to go on and flip through it. Well, in this inaugural issue, I wrote an article called Black Folk Art Defined. And this magazine came about from my research. I was writing an article, and it is a portion of it, of the entire article, that you find here. And I'm talking about, well, what is it to be Black folk? What does that mean? The idea of community. I began it questioning what is Black culture, what is Black community, and what is Black creativity. What does this mean for us as a people as we progress in the 21st century? And so I wrote this article really to answer those questions. I gleaned from The Souls of Black Folk, written by W.E.B. Du Bois. And I was thinking about, what does that mean, the souls of Black folk? And when we use that term Black folk, we so often, at least I do, I think of my grandmother, I think of my aunties and my uncles, I think of my cousins. We're playing outside at a barbecue and we're on the block or we're in the neighborhood. I wanted to create something that really touched on the souls of Black folk. And so for me, Black Folk Art magazine and blackfolkart.com was all about that. It was, how do we create a space that tells our story right now? And we also do, as our ancestors did, and we do like Sankofa, where we look back and we glean from that history. We take from it and we learn from it, and then we grow from it. And so I created Black Folk Art magazine for that very reason. As you see on the screen here, there's Black Folk Art magazine, and it's an art and culture magazine where we highlight artists and creatives and community members that have made a big imprint on the lives of those around them. I have a section in here that I affectionately call the Makeshifters. The idea came from me reading an article as I was writing my own article. I was doing a literature review, and the writer was talking about the idea of making do. Well, we've always known how to make do. We've always been able to make do as a people, and it's been such a part of our culture, our community, and our creativity. So I'm going to flip through here. You can see some of the magazine. This is the article that I wrote called Black Folk Art Defined. You can find it on the website to read the entire in its entirety. Jason Moss, incredible artist and creative that I met with, and recently we did a live conversation. But as I was saying, there's a section here called the Makeshifters, and in this section, my mother actually is the writer and does all the interviews for this section. And this section, we highlighted an artist from New York. Her name is Karen Washington Truitt. And we talk about her art and what she's doing. But the Makeshifters column is all about the creatives in our community, the Black women that have done incredible work, that have held our community together, that have been impactful, that have continued to care and love for our community when no one else did. And they found ways to make do with what seemed like nothing. They were able to find objects and things around them with minimum money, with minimum resources, and they made do. I wanted to highlight the elders in our community and really pay homage to the women that have come before me. There is a art historian that just recently passed away on May 27th of this year. Her name is Samela Lewis. Samela Lewis, she is inspiration for me on so many levels. From her being the first Black woman to receive a doctorate in art history and fine art, to her creating the Museum of African American Art in Los Angeles, to her creating Black Art and International Quarterly, a magazine that she created along with her husband, and her two sons helped package the magazines and send them out to people. She was an innovator. She didn't wait for somebody to do something so that she could then do it. She said, we need a space for this, let's do it. We need a space for that, let's do it. And so she was proactive in her approach. She combated these systems And she did it within these systems. And I thought that that was really powerful. And so gleaning from her work, I trudge forward and I think, let's do something. Let's create something. Let's try to combat systems, and not only be reactive, but be proactive in our approach and making sure that we create spaces for our culture to thrive, to tell our story, and so that the stories of the past and our stories now are not lost due to, as Bell Hooks calls it, the erasure of the Black woman in particular.
One of the most important periods of African American women art, it can be found in what we call the folk tradition. And this is a Louisiana artist, Clementine Hunter, who is one of the most important folk artists. I think she was about 100 years old when she died. She and U.B. Blake died during the same year. And Clementine Hunter lived in Natchitoches and on the plantation there all of her life. But she is regarded as, her works are regarded as some of the most important of the folk art. Clementine Hunter was not included in a major exhibition of works that was circulated by the Corcoran Gallery, and that really excited the art world, the contemporary art world, because she was very cautious about who showed her work and where her work went, and because she was not as cooperative and was not as eager to have her work included in many things, people thought she was very mean and said, well, we're just going to exclude you. And this is a part of the problem in terms of the establishment. If you do not agree as an African American artist or woman artist with what their beliefs are and what their measure of quality is, then you're not included. So this is why I always say that we have to be grateful that we have Stella Jones galleries and our museums, because until the time comes when that measure is one of cooperation and better understanding, then only a few will be chosen, and those few frequently will be supported if they are indeed following the guidelines of what we call strictly the Western tradition. So Clementine Hunter was not a cooperative one. She followed her own guidelines, and she is extremely important in terms of the women's art movement, and especially the African American women.
So for me, I took that concept of folk art and I mixed and I merged it with the idea of Black community, because you can't have one without the other. Art is about the culture. Art is about the community. It's a reflection of, a response to, and a look at what's happening around us in this world. Artists like David Drake, I was curious about his pottery. Artists like Bill Traylor, he was a sharecropper in the South, ended up in Montgomery, Alabama, homeless, creating art on a busy street. And it's a really good documentary called Chasing Ghosts, and they talk about his work and his life. His art depicted the people. His art depicted the moment, the people that cross his path on a daily basis. I was curious about these artists. Sister Gertrude Morgan, she was a citizen within our community that was proactive, creating spaces for her community to be safe and to grow and flourish. You know, I come from a heritage of people that have been dedicated to that. And so for me, knowing myself as an artist, knowing myself as a creative, and also an arts activist, I wanted to see an advocate. I wanted to see what the arts could really look like within our communities if we paid attention, if we were intentional and we were culturally specific in our actions and what we were creating. How could we help our community with a critical lens so that we can look at it and say, okay, this should be or this shouldn't be, or why is this like this? And we begin to conceptualize pieces that challenge the world around us, and it challenges the people to look at themselves. It challenges people to look out and say, well, how can we creatively imagine this world and create a better and positive place for people to live and thrive in? I love the work of Theaster Gates. I think that he is doing some incredible work within the community in Chicago. He is a mover and shaker, as they would say. He's constantly thinking of innovative ways to impact his community. And so Theaster Gates, what he's doing in Chicago is pushing himself to figure things out. He's pushing himself and pushing the envelope and stretching and pushing forth so that people can see something different, because we're not going to do something different if we don't see something different. And that was a big part of why, I created the magazine. I wanted to show something different. If you're interested in advertising for the magazine, you can see the rates here. You can email us at info@blackfolkart.com and get your advertisement in the magazine. This magazine is a quarterly magazine, so we will be coming out with our next one this fall. If you're interested in being a feature in the magazine or having a discussion with Black Folk Art and being on our YouTube channel or our Instagram page and having these discussions, please reach out. I would love to hear from you.